This artist was called the poet of Viennese sexuality. He was one of those persons who turned the capital of Austria into the laboratory of revelation at the end of the 19th and at the beginning of the 20th centuries, and there weren't any forbidden topics for him in art. His name was Gustav Klimt. He was born in Baumgarten, the suburb of Vienna, on the 14th of July, 1862. He was the second of 7 children of an unlucky engraver and had to follow in his father's footsteps. That's why, at the age of 14, he mastered the secrets of the trade at the Vienna School of Arts and Crafts. When he was 20, Gustav, his younger brother Ernst, and his friend Franz Mach established a studio and earned their living from numerous orders for decorating interiors. In 1888, they were asked to paint some pictures for the Berg Theater that had just been built. Gustav wrote "Auditorium" in the old Berg Theater and placed on the canvas about 100 small portraits of his contemporaries. Famous scientists and cultural workers literally stood in queue in front of his studio because they wanted the brush of the young but very talented artist to immortalize them. Klimt was rewarded with the Golden Cross, and the emperor gave him 400 guldens as his own prize. Klimt became a popular artist. He got orders for portraits that were copies of photographs more and more often. Gustav did it with photographic accuracy. He traced faces during his whole career as if anticipating the hyperrealism of the 20th century. In his first works, another feature that became the peculiarity of Klimt's whole painting was seen. He was fond of antiques, in particular ancient ornaments, mosaics, gold and silver stamping. In 1892, the studio closed down after Ernst's death. In the 5 years that followed, Gustav seemed to try different trends in art, looking to find one of his own. At the age of 35, Klimt gathered and for 8 years headed the union of artists called the Vienna Secession, whose aim was to rejuvenate art, get rid of obsolete rules, equalize in rights lofty conservative painting and low radical and modern works. The symbol of the secession was Pallas Athena, painted by Klimt in 1898. In this work, he used gold for the first time. It would be a frequent element in his canvases. The head of Gorgon putting out her tongue at the critics of the secession is depicted on Athena's breastplate. Athena was the first character in Klimt's gallery of fatal women who were self-confident and bending men at their will. The theme of women's supremacy was one of the most popular ideas during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, and the main theme in Klimt's portraits. It didn't matter whose portrait he created, he always wrote Eve tempting and crushing men by her sexuality. Klimt's women are always reserved, a little arrogant and condescending. They are accustomed to luxury, but they hunger for emancipation. Klimt very seldom depicted men in his pictures, and if at all, only as a background against which a woman dominated. She was an inexhaustible source of a new knowledge for Klimt. Studying a woman, he wrote her in different poses and was more than once accused of licentiousness for it. Vienna's young women adored Klimt and indulged in his caprices. In his studio, there were always 2 or 3 models every time, and they were ready to let everybody look at them. Even noble ladies agreed to pose naked for Klimt. The unfinished picture, The Bride, revealed the artist's secret. He drew a woman's body without any clothes and then covered it with fantastic costumes. This is another characteristic feature of his painting. He turned an ornament into a body and vice versa. The most famous illustration of this method is The Kiss. In it, Klimt depicted himself and his only love, Emilie Vloge. Some biographers of the artist say that they were not married, and that the relations between Gustav and Emilie were platonic. Anyway, Vloge accompanied Klimt in all his trips. They spent the summer at the lake where he painted landscapes, worked at the sketches of cloths and dresses for the fashion house Emilie ran. Earning very much from writing portraits and having some generous patrons of art, the artist could afford to say in one interview, "I refuse any state help and commissions." It happened when Vienna's scientists attacked 3 panels he had made for the university. Seeing the women's characters that were the symbols of philosophy, medicine, and law for Klimt, the professors cried out, "This is not art, this is pornography." In reply, the artist bought out his works and explained that he didn't do it because he was offended. "I am not very sensitive when people attack me, but I become much more sensitive if a person who ordered me work is displeased with it." On the 11th of January 1918, Klimt suffered a hemorrhage of the brain and one side of his body was paralyzed. On the 6th of February, he died at the age of 56. Klimt didn't write any self-portraits in his life. "I am sure that I am not very interesting as a man. There is nothing special in me that could make people look at me. I am an artist who writes from morning till night every day. If you want to know me as an artist, you should study my pictures carefully."